What's up, Buffalo Nation? Today is a day for celebration. Our main story today is about the absolutely epic amount of talent that's coming to Colorado for both official and unofficial visits this weekend. We already talked about a few of these great players earlier in the week, but several new names have been added to the list. Also, if you guys don't know, I wanted to shout out Colorado's recruiting coordinator, Darius. This man is working hard right now, helping Coach Prime build the program, build the dream. So thank you, Darius. Thank you, David Kelly, who does a phenomenal job out there as the general manager, and everyone else on staff, the recruiting staff, for all the hard work that they do. Also, do me a favor if you're watching this. Shout out Darius. Shout out David Kelly. Shout out that recruiting staff in the comment section and tell them how much you appreciate them and their work. So grab your snack mix, sit back, and get ready because this is the prime time for college football. Our first story today, we're going to talk about what a wonderful recruiting class that Colorado has coming in this weekend. A list that is really impressive, one of the better lists in college football. Let's walk through this quickly. 5-star Jordan Seaton, the nation's best offensive tackle. This kid is an absolute beast. Next up, 4-star Draylon Miller. He's an epic offensive weapon who makes plays for his high school team at receiver, running back, and even lines up as the Wildcat quarterback at times. Also takes lots of snaps on the defensive side of the ball, and his return game is another aspect of his game that Colorado's excited about. Loaded with physical tools, instinct, tenacity, and a high football IQ. Then you've got an SEC commit, 4-star defensive lineman Nasir Johnson. He's an athletic big man that has made an impact on both sides of the ball. He's explosive. He's great movement through the hips. He's got athletic markers and a strong track and field throwing numbers to boast as well. He's currently committed to the Florida Gators. He'd be a big one for Colorado to try and flip. 4-star edge King Joseph Edwards. He is a wicked athlete with twitch and a developmental upside, being recruited by several of the nation's top colleges. A big visitor here. He actually had a prediction put in for him to the Buffs this week as well. 4-star linebacker Elijah Mendez, a highly sought-after linebacker known for his devastating hits, also being recruited by some of the best colleges in the country. You've then got 4-star LaMason Waller, a two-way player being recruited primarily at wide receiver. He puts up amazing numbers at high school. Now, thanks to On3 for this graphic, and Josh Newberg does a great job over there on the On3 Recruits YouTube channel. You should check that out if recruiting is your bag. These young men would be huge pieces towards building this program. Did you notice that every single one of them was a blue chip? Every single one of them either a 4 or 5-star athlete coming in this weekend. These are the kind of players that Coach Prime needs to continue to build this roster and continue to build the trenches on this roster as he builds this program. These men are going to be huge pieces if Coach Prime can add them. So again, to all of you wealthy folks out there in Colorado, I know you guys are out there. We got to be opening our wallets up and showing the love. Get in contact with the NIL Collective there in Colorado. Get in contact with the program, and let's make sure that we are matching and competing with some of those big offers across the country. Okay, now on to the game. We've got an epic upcoming game on Saturday, a matchup between Colorado and Oregon State. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time complaining about the time, but get your afternoon coffees out because this 10 p.m. kickoff is one that you're going to have to stay up for late if you're on the East Coast like me. I get up early on Saturdays with 3 kids, and so these 10 p.m. kickoffs are killing me. They don't sponsor, but I've got a coffee here that I'm probably going to have on Saturday night as well. Oregon State is 6-2. However, they're just 3-2 in conference. Now, they are ranked. They're top 20 at number 16 right now. They're a 13.5-point favorite, meaning that Vegas thinks they win by about 2 touchdowns. It certainly isn't a game that Vegas is telling you is going to be a blowout or anything like that. Again, 10 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. You get the national audience on the biggest network in sports. And the game is at Folsom Field, so you're playing this at home. You have that advantage baked in as well. Game obviously out there a couple hours earlier. It's going to be a live atmosphere. That is going to be a phenomenal atmosphere to be at. If you're at the game this weekend, I'm jealous of you. Enjoy it. Be safe. Be responsible. Be respectful, like Coach Prime says. But, man, go out and have a blast. I am super jealous because I know it's going to be lit for a primetime kickoff out there at Colorado. Now, we mentioned their record. They're 6-2. They started 3-0, and then they lost a game, and then they won their next 3 games and then lost a game. So hopefully we can break that streak of them not losing 2 in a row. But they lost last week to Arizona, who's not a world beater by any means. Arizona's a fine program, but Oregon State definitely has some vulnerabilities. Their 3-0 start is also just a tad bit misleading, and I don't want to take anything away from them. They're 6-2. They're a good program. Not trying to say that they're not, but their first 3 wins were against San Jose State, UC Davis, and San Diego State. Hardly any of those teams are world beaters. Colorado would be 3-0 to start the season against those 3 teams as well. As you remember, Colorado started with TCU, Nebraska, and Colorado State. All 3 of those teams better than the 3 teams UCLA played. Now, since then, Colorado has played teams that are really good. Oregon, they played UCLA. They also played USC, good offense, bad defense. And Oregon State hasn't quite played that same level of competition. And so though they're 6-2 and the Buffs are 4-4, there's really not a ton between these 2 teams that I would say is markedly different. However, they are a good team. They rank really well with some statistical categories that we'll get into in just a moment. But this is a winnable matchup. Don't look at the number 16 next to Oregon State's name and think, oh, well, another ranked team, we have no shot. They have the 48th best passing offense in the country. As a reminder, Colorado is number 6. They take care of the ball. They only have thrown 4 interceptions on the season. Colorado, as a reminder, has only thrown 3. They have the 28th best rushing offense. They run the ball really, really well, 187 yards a game. Their defense is mediocre. They have the 67th best passing defense. Last week, Colorado played the best rushing defense in the country in UCLA. This week, they get a little bit of a break. Oregon State is only the 32nd best rush defense. Their quarterback, DJ Uiagalelei, is completing 60% of his passes. He's got just under 1,800 yards, 17 touchdowns to 4 picks, and a pretty good passer rating at over 150. He's a transfer from Clemson who has found a really nice home there in the Pac-12 at Oregon State, and he's doing some good things. He's not as dynamic as Shedeur. He doesn't have quite the playmaking abilities, but DJ does a good job, and he's really rebounded from a rough season last year at Clemson. Damian Martinez is their leading rusher with 763 yards, and Siler Bolden leads receivers with 522 yards. At the end of the day, this is a matchup that Colorado can certainly compete in. Just like the UCLA game last week. If Colorado could have done a couple of things differently, if they could have finished a couple of those early drives when they scored multiple times to open the game, but they just couldn't get in the end zone, the game turns out differently. You lost that game by 2 scores. It's about what you were an underdog by. If you were to lose this game by a score or 2, nobody would be surprised. But I think they have an opportunity to win this. I don't think that Oregon State is quite as good as UCLA. I think some of their wins prop them up. I think losing to Arizona shows that they do have vulnerabilities. And I think that Colorado can get it done. Here's my big key. Here's my big question to look for. And I don't want to belabor this point. I don't want to seem like I'm calling anybody out on this. But I know the team's going to show up. I think it's good for Colorado, maybe not overall, but in this matchup, I think it's good for them that they've lost a couple of games. Some of that national attention and pressure is no longer on them. They're not getting talked about every single week, all here, there, everywhere. And so maybe some of that limelight is backed up just a tad, and the kids can just focus on playing football. I think that the idea that Colorado is getting everybody's best game, I think Oregon came out and wanted to make a statement against Colorado because of all the hype and talk and everything else. I don't know if Oregon State's going to quite feel that same way. There's not that same hype that we had earlier in the year, admittedly, because we've lost a few games since then. But this is an opportunity for Colorado, who is playing at home in a game where they're pretty similar to the other team, to make a statement and come back and win this thing to just be one game away from bowl eligibility. Now, can they do it? I mentioned one thing that I'm looking for to see if they can do to pull off this upset. And I've mentioned this several times throughout the week, and so I'm not trying to give this unit a hard time. At the end of the day, I think the kids' effort is high, but if our offensive line cannot give Shedeur time to make the right reads and get the ball to our playmakers, if our offensive line cannot open up the holes for our running backs, it's going to be a long night. The offensive line has its limitations. There's just no doubt about it. But if they can dig deep and pull something out within themselves to go out and play a great game, Colorado can win this thing. If the offensive line is not able to get off blocks, to move, to be sharp, to communicate well, to play as a unit of five that plays as one, it's going to be a tough night. It just is. You're only as good as you are in the trenches. No matter how good Shedeur is, no matter how good Travis is, no matter how good Shiloh is, no matter how good Xavier or Jimmy Horn or Alton or any of these guys are, if the offensive line can't get it done, it's going to be a tough night. So we're going to make a prediction on this game. And I'm going to cheat a little bit, but before I do that, I am going to give some love to our friends over at Prize Picks. Hey, even more of you signed up last month, but for some reason, less of you deposited. So when you're signing up for the Prize Picks app, make sure that you're doing a deposit as well. You can use our code BUFFS, BUFFS, to get a 100% match up to $100. The more or lesses are already listed. We tell you about them every week, but I made money last week again on the Buffs game. More, less, you pick a couple of guys and you roll. You don't just have to pick the Buffs games. I'm going to take Jaden Daniels' more on passing yards. I think there's a lot of good lines in there that you can go check out. Go to the Prize Picks app, use our code BUFFS, BUFFS, for a 100% deposit match up to $100. All right, so how am I going to cheat on predicting this game? Well, I'm going to give you 2 score predictions. And this is the first time we've done this. This is the 9th game of the year, so I'm 4 for 4 this year. I've picked Colorado every single week. But I have a feeling of how this game goes down. In fact, I have 2 feelings of how this one shakes out. I think that Colorado can get this done. And I'm a homer. I've picked them every week this year. But I've really liked certain things. I've really liked the way that they've looked at times, and certainly could have never predicted the loss against Stanford. And we were very close on the USC one. But I mentioned the offensive line. If they can play their best game of the year, and if Shedeur has enough time, I think Colorado can pull this off. Now, I think it's close. I think they win by about a touchdown. I think they can pull this off, something like 38-31. However, if the offensive line can't give Shedeur enough time to really get things going, I don't know how we score enough points to make this game ours. I think that if the offensive line struggles, if Oregon State's able to kind of do what they're able to do defensively to limit us, I think they end up winning something like 34-24. I don't think it's a blowout. I think it's really close either way. I'm going to err on the side of the offensive line getting some things together. I think that having Savion back another week is really big for this team. I think that there are some things that are trending in the right direction for Colorado. But the alternate reality exists too. And if we can't get the offensive line and the trenches right, it's going to be a long last couple of weeks. I've got confidence we can. I really like this staff. I love Coach Prime. I think that they can get it done, but it's to be seen. Will it happen or not? You guys let me know your thoughts down in the comments. What's your score prediction for this weekend? I'm hoping that my first one's right, my second one's wrong. It doesn't matter, though. I'm going to be here either way, chatting with you guys after the game. We'll see either on Sunday or Monday morning. You guys seem to like the Monday releases, so we'll see how that goes. But thank you guys, as always, for the support. We love you. Thank you for watching the prime time for college football.